How do you recover from narcissistic abuse? Narcissistic or emotional abuse is harder to recognise than other forms of abuse, but its effects can be just as harmful, and my personal belief, experiencing both is more harmful. In this video, I want to explain how healing is possible and share with you 10 techniques that will help you. Hello, I'm Elizabeth. I'm a woundologist and the founder of the Divorce Sanctuary. I'm also author of Finding Lily and the A to Z of Emotional Abuse. On this channel, I talk about healing from emotional abuse and divorcing emotionally from the abuser, as I want to help you understand and process what's happening inside you and help you discover the best tools to heal on a deeper level. If you're new to the channel, please don't forget to subscribe, and if you're returning, welcome back and thank you. How do you recover from narcissistic or emotional abuse? It's harder to recognise than other forms of abuse, but its effects can be as harmful. And as I said, my personal belief, experiencing both, it was more harmful. So I want to share with you 10 techniques to help you on that journey of recovery. Emotional abuse involves a broad range of tactics, including shaming, gaslighting, triangulation. These are meant to leave you feeling powerless. And in some cases, the signs of emotional abuse are so subtle that you might not be sure that you're actually on the receiving end of it. And I'm going to put a link to my video on coercive control in the description. Emotional abuse affects every part of your life, emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, and financially. You might experience isolation and loneliness and feelings of powerlessness, self-doubt or shame. It creates confusion. It destroys your self-esteem, leaving you with anxiety and fear, and avoiding life and people. You find your life is consumed with them and the need to know what they're doing. Emotional abuse involves the use of words, actions, and behaviours that harm an individual and can have long-lasting effects on a person's mental and emotional health. You might have experienced constant criticism or belittling where they've made negative comments about your appearance or your intelligence or your abilities. You might have experienced manipulation using guilt, fear, and shame to control you, gaslighting, denying or distorting your reality, getting you to doubt your own perceptions. Withholding affection or emotional support. You might have experienced isolation where you were made to feel guilty or you were prevented from seeing your friends and family. And children who experience emotional abuse may demonstrate behavioural changes. They might show signs of ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, sometimes using abusive words or abusive towards each other. They might self-harm. They might have suicidal thoughts. It might affect their emotional development. Children who experience emotional abuse might have more difficulty managing their responses to emotions. They may also seem less emotionally mature than their peers, as abuse could make it harder to grow a trusting relationship. They develop maladaptive coping mechanisms. And research from 2014 highlights how childhood emotional abuse can lead to the development of unhealthy ways of coping in women who've experienced it. So, for example, it can lead to numbing or disconnecting from emotions. Other children may resort to fantasy and imagination, leading to avoidant behaviours and isolation over time. And I'll put a link to that article in the description box below. The brain is the control centre and it drives the functioning of all the systems within the body. So today I want to share with you some tools to help you reprogram this system. The limbic system is a complex set of structures in the midbrain and is associated with emotion, learning, memory, and the body's stress response. Ongoing or chronic stress and various forms of trauma such as viral or bacterial infection, extreme emotional or psychological stress, toxic exposure to chemicals, physical injury, as well as many other forms of trauma can cause a threat to the circuits within the brain's limbic system, which fires more rapidly. This is the brain's innate response to stress and trauma. However, in some cases, the brain's limbic system can get stuck in a fight, flight, fawn, freeze response. And this maladapted stress response, meaning inadequately or inappropriately adapted to the environment or situation, is called a limbic system impairment. And the brain and the body then remain on high alert even when the threat is over. The limbic system impairment can be caused by one single trauma, but more often it's a combination of stresses and traumas over a period of time. And the limbic system impairment can affect many systems of the brain and of the body, including those involved with emotional, sensory perception and cognitive function. Symptoms include chronic inflammation, poor memory, brain fog, digestive issues, low energy, sensitivity, chronic pain, and sleep issues. It can also affect the functions such as detoxification, absorption of nutrients, and cellular communication. Now, always remember Caroline Myers talking about trauma and leading with the wound. And she said, if you've seen anybody who's aged overnight, you know that they've been through a significant traumatic event in their life. During my online course, It Stops Here, It Stops Now, I share an exercise, befriending your personal fault finder. I'm now going to share with you 10 things that you can do to help you on your healing journey and becoming your best friend forever. You might notice emotions coming up, negative emotions. Speak to them. Find out what they really want. Have honest conversations. And the 3 core elements to start your healing journey are grounding, breathing, and honest conversations. Get courageous. You can take responsibility for your healing. You can rewire your brain and your thoughts and your emotions. Understand your emotions. They can be amplified. So be gentle with yourself and be more compassionate when you talk to yourself. And when you hear those statements, ask yourself, are they true? Lean in a little bit further and see what you can hear and whose voice it is saying these words. Be curious and be present. When you hear a statement or a belief that moves through your thoughts, play with it. When you hear the voice it belongs to, start to question if it's true. I was told I was bipolar and it took me 6 years to realise this statement wasn't true. As my energy started to drop one day, a thought occurred to me. Our relationship was a lie, and I was holding on to this one belief because at the time I was in pain and I was desperately trying to keep my energy levels high. And I was told, we think you're bipolar. Once I had that thought and that realization, that belief was gone. Be aware of your emotions. What are you experiencing? We have 3 core wounds: abandonment, shame, and betrayal. With the limbic system impairment, emotions and limiting beliefs become amplified, and your mind might be stuck like a needle on a record player where the needle gets stuck in the groove. So stop asking if your thoughts are true and if you can list all the ways it isn't true. I remember being told that I was bad with money as a child and as an adult, and I was able to list all the ways I had supported myself, created businesses from nothing. Each time I had experienced financial coercive control, although it took me years to recover and rebuild, I did it from nothing. Be observant, listen out for the inner critic and befriend it. I'm going to put a link to my online course, It Stops Here, It Stops Now, in the description box. When you hear a statement, ask if your best friend would agree with it. Make a list of all the things that your best friend would say to contradict that statement. Be compassionate and kind to yourself. You might be experiencing emotions, believing you don't deserve this. But it is a powerful step. It reinforces new pathways and it can bring you out of the trauma loop. Treat yourself like a toddler. Nurture yourself in the way that you would a young child. During an emotionally abusive relationship, you're stripped of everything and you're reprogrammed, which is likely to have included stripping you back and leaving you with the coping mechanisms of a toddler, maybe even younger. This is why it's crucial to respond to your needs. And you will be able to rebuild and you will be able to work through all of the developmental stages that you've been stripped of. And you will be also able to reparent at the same time. Be your best friend. You might experience emotions unfamiliar to you, rages that you've never experienced before. Your body might be raging with hormones like a prepubescent teenager. And remind yourself it's natural after everything you've been through to be confused or forgetful, to experience shame and guilt. Sit with yourself as you would a friend who has been through the most horrific trauma. And if you can, allow the tears to flow without stopping them. Remember to ground and breathe, and remind yourself this is temporary and you're safe as long as you are. Be responsible for the role that you played within the relationship, and then remind yourself it's not your fault. So when you start to go into rumination, telling yourself the same blame story, stop. Remind yourself of the abuse and the unhealthy relationship. See the comparison in other relationships and see how you might take the blame. Perhaps you were allocated the role of scapegoat in your family unit. This default setting has been your survival setting for your life. I will link the video, I've got a few actually, on scapegoating. You are responsible for your own healing. And as you heal these wounds, you will realise that you can't save anyone but yourself. Why is it some people are able to walk away while others get caught up in the web that the abuser creates? These relationships feel familiar to you. And slowly over time, the abuser is able to work subtly, breaking down every boundary, creating chaos and destroying every level of your life. Others get to walk away when they start to question the abuser or to point out their bad behaviour. Start putting in place some self-care. You may have developed core beliefs that you aren't good enough, or you aren't enough, or you don't deserve any better. You might have watched siblings being treated in a different way to you and believe that if you behave differently or wait for your moment, you will be seen in the same way. This can also be the reason that you stay too long in a relationship, waiting for it to be your turn. By reframing the narrative and putting a few simple self-care practices in place, you're telling yourself that you are worthy of attention, and it can be from yourself. You can start dating yourself, take yourself out for coffee or to the theatre or window shopping. Feel how nice it can be not to be reacting to the mood of someone else. How you can buy a cake or a muffin or a sandwich, or you can go into shops that you want to visit or watch the films that you want to watch. Create a list of the things that you couldn't do or you weren't allowed to do, and gently give yourself permission to do them or to wear something. Befriend your emotions. Actually name them. So it could be Sharon's shame, Gilbert guilt, Anthony abandonment, or Bertie betrayal. When they have names and you know what your emotions are and what you're experiencing, you can say, hey, Anthony, what's going on? And Anthony might say, well, Elizabeth, I'm feeling a bit uncomfortable. I remember feeling like this my first day of school. I have no friends. I didn't really understand what was happening. One day I was playing with toys and the next I'm sitting in a room with a book in front of me and someone telling me to sit down. Sharon, shame, might remember the day that she was at nursery school and when they were playing a game and she didn't understand the rules and the teachers were laughing at her. Bertie, betrayal, might remember the time that he was waiting for his friends all day, only to find out later that the new boy to the group had rearranged the time and the place to meet and they didn't tell him. Whereas Gilbert Guilty might be remembering the time that he went off to play with a group of friends, and as he wanted to be part of the group, he didn't tell his best friend Bertie that the new boy to the group was taking over and that he'd changed the plans. He knew that this new person to the group had deliberately not included Bertie because he was more popular, and that Gilbert was fearful of what would happen if he said something. These emotions are in your body like physical wounds. They are emotional trauma and they hurt. You can also use tools to get more creative. You can create your own personal survival kit for the days when you're overcome with emotions or events that knock you over, knock you sideways. You can use things like bath salts and scented candles, maybe a bar of chocolate or a treat. You could maybe write yourself a letter saying, here I am for you, Or you could start it with, if you're reading this, things must be bad. What you need to do before you break open the snacks, read this empowering statement. Write the letter as if you're writing it to a friend. You could create a box. You could put things like sensory things in there, like bath bombs, something that reminds you of a happy moment or a happy place, some sweets, a poem, a book. You couldn't put a tub of ice cream in there. However, what you might put in an envelope is some money to go and buy an ice cream. And I say that because there were times that I wouldn't have even been able to scrape together the money. You might even include your story. Remind yourself how far you've come on this journey. Perhaps you could create that in a comic style or a magazine style. Look at the mountains that you've climbed, the things that you've overcome to get to this point. And that box could be a gift from the past. And as you're preparing this, you create love around it. So when you open it, you feel that love. And you're showing yourself how much that you mean to yourself, how strong you are. Again, this is all reprogramming on a level that you might not be aware of. Healing from emotional abuse is a journey. It is not linear. Healing the wounds from this and other relationships is life-changing, and I promise you, you are not alone. It's really important to surround yourself with people who understand what you're going through, the emotions that you're experiencing, and they do that with no judgment. Take the time to practice self-care and be gentle with yourself. Reprogramming the messages that you've heard and that you're repeating to yourself is crucial. Healing is a process. It's important to be patient and kind to yourself. You deserve to live a life free of abuse, and with the right support and healing, that is possible. And you can do that even if you just learned the 3 foundations for healing: grounding, breathing, and honest conversations. I'll put the links to everything that I've talked about today in description, along with the link to my membership, the Rise and Thrive Tribe. It's a really low cost membership with no contract, where you'll be surrounded and supported by people who understand what you're going through. I hope this has been helpful. If you know anybody who needs to hear this, please forward it on to them. And don't forget that you can subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Sending you loads and loads of love until next time.